Hey everyone, this is Travis with Modern Homemakers. My family and I just moved into this house, and currently our bed is in the living room, and we've been sleeping in the living room, and I'm getting really sick of it. I'd like to be moved into our bedroom, but unfortunately we can't just move into the bedroom because my wife has like this big list of projects that have to be tackled in the room before we can move into it. One of those is closet storage. So you see behind me, we've got this closet here. We've got quite a bit more clothes than will fit in closets, mostly hers. So what we need to do is we need to increase the capacity of these closets to fit more clothing. So you can see what we have to work with. This really isn't gonna hold a lot of stuff. So what I did was I went online and I looked up some magic spells, and I found one that I think is gonna work, but I'm gonna try it out, so just bear with me, have an open mind, okay? I love peanut butter sandwiches! Ha! Okay, so that didn't work. So unfortunately that means we have to like do some work, which is like the sad part. So what I'm going to do, if you come into the closet with me, you can see that we've got these shelves up here, all right? And there's already this pole right here, which if you come over here, you can see that this just lifts out, so we can take this out if we want to, but that's not what we're going to do. What we're actually going to do is we're going to move this entire thing up. So you see we've already got this little frame in place that's holding this shelf up. We're going to take this one out. We're going to move this one up so that this pole can actually be up here. And then we are going to add another pole below. So we can have clothes up here, and then we can have clothes down here. And we're basically going to be doubling our vertical space because this is a really small closet. So let's get started. I'm not really a handyman, you should just know that up front, but over the years I've had to just jump in and learn how to do some stuff and sometimes improvise a little bit. So that's pretty much what we're doing. I mean, the only alternative is I can like make my kids do it, but then we'd really be in trouble. They'd probably burn the house down. So that means I have to figure it out. So I've gotten out some tools. These are some things I think I'm going to need. I don't know for sure. As we go along, we might need some more stuff, but I pulled out some things that I feel pretty confident that I'm going to need. So I got a drill. I've got some paddle bits here, okay? So for drilling a hole for where the new pole is going to be. I've got a hacksaw. These are great for cutting through handcuffs if you ever have that problem, but might come in handy here. Drill bits. These are different types of drill bits, so if we need like Phillips head or flat head or star bit, don't know what we're going to need. We've got a stud finder. Okay, we've got some different sizes of screws in here. Okay, so for those of you that actually know tools, you might want to say in the comments what this thing is. I don't know what this is. We're really cheap. Okay, we're cheapskates. We don't like to go buy a bunch of stuff. We like to make the most of what we have. Especially me, I think it's really boring to go spend money on, you know, materials to build stuff. I would rather just try to find what we have and make it work. So these are some random things that we just happen to have right now. Now, when you do inventory, you might have different stuff, but this was a pole that we found in the shed at the house. So this was already here. So if you don't already have one of these in your shed somewhere, you might need to go get one, but this is going to be the pole that I'm going to use. I'm going to have to cut it, and this will be the new pole. These are pieces from my kids' bunk beds. So they're really too old for bunk beds. So we've taken them apart and just made them separate beds. And these are some of the pieces from that, like the railing and the ladder. So I'm gonna see if I can make this stuff work for this project. Okay, so I haven't even gotten started yet, and like I said, I've already realized that I'm going to need more tools to do this, so I got out a level. I also got a hammer. And I'm gonna need this big honking screwdriver here. Or if you happen to have a crowbar, that would do the job. I don't have one, but you might have one, that might be better. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna have to do is start taking out the things that are already in the closet. So I'm gonna start with this pole. Fortunately, if you look right here, this just lifts right out on this side. So I like the way they have that groove there. Very easy to take out. So set that aside.
Is it groovy?
Okay, moving right along. We're gonna lift these shelves right out. Those are not attached, they just sit frame. Ew, there's like some nasty funk right here where I move that shelf. So you never know what you'll find. Hopefully, if you're doing yours, you'll find like some, you know, dollar bills wadded in there or something cool. You might just find some gross stuff that you have to clean up, but I'm going to take these parts out first, and then I'll deal with that mess. All right, so you might find that you've got some things like this, like these hooks. I'm going to go ahead and take these out first before I try to remove these pieces because I don't want to damage them. You know, these cost like a whopping $1.50, and you know, you're on a budget. You might not want to spend $1.50. You might want to spend that on like a candy bar or something or a coffee. So anyway, just keep that in mind. You know, try to preserve as many of the original pieces as you can. We're gonna go ahead and take this thing out. Oh yeah, here's my other drill that I forgot that I'd probably need. You know, tools just keep appearing out of nowhere. Oh, it's raining tools. All right. Okay, so our last house was 70 years old. This house is only 50 years old. So this is like a baby. But needless to say, I have no idea how you got these pieces in here. I don't know if they were nailed in or screwed in or glued or what. Regardless, they've been painted over like a zillion times. So even if they have been nailed in or whatever, I can't see where that stuff is. I'm not able to see any nails when I look at it, but they could be under several layers of paint. So I'm just gonna pry these out and we'll see what we find. So again, if you've got a crowbar, that might be a better tool for the job. I don't have one. I don't feel like going out and getting one just for this. For me, it's just a hammer and a screwdriver is enough. Flat blade screwdriver. But this is the fun part. This is where we get to tear things apart. That's my favorite part of a project, is destroying. So I wish there was more of that. I wish I could destroy more things, but gotta make things look nice. So anyway, here we go. Okay, so taking another look at this, I realized that this board was put in last. If you look right here, you can see that it overlays that. So it's going to be easier to get this one out first than trying to take those other ones out. Okay, so these things are like really in here. One thing that you want to pay attention to is in the corner here. If this is kind of sealed by paint, you want to take your screwdriver and try to strip some of that away, because that might be part of what's holding it in there tight. All right, I'm just going to use the claw part of the hammer. Okay, that seems to be working a little bit better. Oh yeah, hey, look at that. We got a nail right here. I couldn't see that before, but when we use the claw, you might want to start with the claw, your hammer, before you do all the other stuff. But let's go ahead and take this nail out. Alright, keep doing that. Starting to loosen up a little bit. Here we go.
Well, there's some spackle fun for me.
Yeah.
Oh man, there were nails all
Yeah.
along.
Alright, get the other ones out now. Should come out a little easier.
It's like a really boring mystery. Oh,
You start to hear a splitting sound, stop whatever you're doing. Okay. So, for future reference, hopefully you've been watching this video and you haven't just been doing the project. You're actually going to watch the video before you start your project to see what mistakes I make or whatever, so that you can avoid those mistakes. But when you start doing this, your pieces might have these nails in the corners. So that might be a good place to start with your hammer, trying to dislodge those. And then I'll do the same thing on this other side. So based on what the other ones were like, I know now that there are nails here in the corners that are holding these pieces on. So I'm just gonna go right there. And then when I'm done with this, I'm gonna do the same thing with these pieces, which based on how they put these in, I'm assuming that these were done the exact same way. And then I'll be back. Okay, so you can see we got all these boards ripped out. It's looking kind of funky right now. We've got a little bit of patching and painting work to do, we as in my wife. So really super scientific method of determining where you want your poles to go. If you want to take like some clothes, like take a pair of pants or a shirt on a hanger and just kind of eyeball it about where you would want it to be. So I want to have one pole down here and then one pole above it. So I'm going to start with the one below and I'm just going to say, okay, that looks pretty good right there. It's not touching the floor. So basically that's going to work for starters, and then we'll pull this up above the line and we'll do another one right about here. Okay, so one thing I realized pretty early on is that my level is way too big for this project. You can see, I try to put it in there, it will not fit at all. So that's a bummer. However, there are ways around that. I do have this handy dandy tool. If you have anything similar to this, if you have a yardstick or whatever, that'll do the trick. But what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to measure from the floor for this first line how far it is. So it's about 8.5 inches. So I'm just going to go across 8.5 inches. So since we can't use a level, this will be our workaround. You know, before I do that, this is a good point. We need to take these nails out of these pieces. So let's do that real quick. And I'm going to do that on all of these and then I'll come back. Okay, so as you can see, I took the nails out of all of these pieces, and what I did was I measured from the floor how high up I wanted my line. Once I drew a few spots spaced apart, then I was able to lay this there and trace with that. I'm going to do the same thing up here, so you can see my original pencil mark. It's about 10 inches from the ceiling, so I'm just going to go up to the 10-inch mark and do that. Alright, so I'm going to put this up here. Trace. Okay, So if you look at the original pieces that I took down, we've got this one piece that just has a hole in it, and then the other piece also has a hole in it, but it's got this section notched out so that you can fit the pole. If it was just the hole, you wouldn't be able to fit the pole in there, so we have to have a notch in there. Now, you see what I have to work with here. These were the railing on a bunk bed, so I don't have pieces that are the same size as this. Okay, so what I'm going to do so I can work with this is I'm going to tape these together. Now this is not a permanent solution. This is just to hold it together while I'm working with it. This is the ugly side, so if you have one side that looks worse than the other, that would be the ideal side to do this with. So, again, just to hold it together while I'm working with it, because I'm basically going to put these two pieces together to kind of treat it like one piece, so it'll serve the same purpose. So, got these taped together, flip it over, and lay down the original piece right here. I'm going to trace the line. So that's going to be a cut. Okay, so that's where that cut is going to be. And then for the other piece, I will take the original piece, the other side, here. Alright, then while I've got this here, I will go ahead and trace this. So this is going to be interesting because we're going to be cutting into two different pieces. Bring this back, we'll put this here, trace our hole. Okay, so before I start cutting, just to make sure, this is like kind of my scrap. I'm not going to use this at all. That's just going to be a cut off. I'm going to, just to make sure these are going to hold together while I'm working with it. Just going to tape these up. Just going to go all the way around here. Doesn't really matter about a pretty side or ugly side because that whole end is going to come off. Alright, and then we are ready to start cutting these. Okay, so I know I said originally I was going to use this, and you can still use this if you want to. However, I'm starting to get a little bit tired as the day goes on, and or maybe lazy is the right word, I don't know. But I'm going to use an electric saw. So I've got this propped up here. This will be a lot quicker. Probably just a smoother cut as well. Okay, so before I cut this piece, I'm going to reinforce it just a little bit. Keep in mind this end is the piece that's coming off. So we'll put the tape over here on the other side of that. Over, there's the line. Ready to cut this part. Here we go. I do want to say, if you're going to use a saw like that, don't be an idiot like me and actually wear some sort of safety goggles. It's just a good idea. My father-in-law were here with me, he'd be like, what are you doing? Okay, so we're going to start with the easier one first. This is one where we just have to have a simple hole. We're going to use a paddle bit. So as you can see, this paddle bit is it's about the right size for the hole. So we'll put the paddle bit in our drill. Alright, so as you can see, we got to the bottom, we started to have some issues. It's looking pretty gnarly on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull away this tape so that this will still stick together so that everything's lined up. But again, this is our ugly side, so this side looks all right. You know, we got a pretty good hole there. So on to the next one. Okay, so on this one again, this is where we have to have this notch because we have to have room for that pole to slide in. So we're going to start with the paddle bit right here and drill a circle, drill a hole with the circle, and then we will cut this piece out separately. Okay, so again, you know, this side's looking a little funky, but that side's going to be covered up. It's going to be going against the wall, so you won't see all of that. Get the tape out of the way. Alright, for the next part we're going to need our saw again. Hopefully this will be a little easier, just cutting a straight line. Okay, so we're ready to start putting pieces up. I'm going to start with the high one just to get that out of the way because I don't really like having to work up high. I'm going to use the original pieces because these are a little bit stronger, and you don't have to worry about, you know, if we get into a tight spot, it's going to be harder to deal with these pieces that we had to cut and fit together. So if I have to trim a little bit off the edge, that's okay. I recommend using nails if you've got them. Hammer and nails, I think it'll be a lot easier. I'm out of nails, so I have to work with what I've got. I've got a lot of screws though. And I don't have to drill. Normally you would drill some pilot holes. Since I've already got the original holes that the nails were in, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to put them right in these holes. So, alright, okay, so I know that I said that since we already have holes in here that you don't need to drill pilot holes. You really should drill some pilot holes in here. It was not fun at all getting those screws to go in there. I actually had to swap out for a more powerful drill, and even it didn't really do the job, so yeah. So that's what we're going to do on the other piece, is we're going to drill some quick pilot holes. And again, I'm using the original holes, I'm just widening them out a little bit so that it'll be easier to get the screw to go in. And it looks like on this side there was only one nail originally holding that in, so we'll add another hole here. And then on this side, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. There is a hole right here, but as you can see, it's starting to split there. So I'm going to add a different hole next to that on the solid part. That'll be our new pilot hole. And then here's the original. Okay. After playing around with this a little bit, I originally thought that I was going to need to trim some of this off to get it to fit because the walls go in closer at the top, but I decided that I don't think that's necessary because if I just give it a little tap with a hammer, I think that it's going to go in the rest of the way, and then it'll just be even tighter, and that way when I put the screws in, that'll just support it even more. So there we go. So it's already pretty tight, just like that, just being wedged in there, but I'm gonna go ahead and put the screws in so it's extra strong. Alright, so you get the idea. Alright, now for the fun part, we're gonna put this bar in. Before we do that, I will point out that originally notice when this was in here, it was a shelf, of course, and there was this back piece on there. And if you're going to have a shelf sitting on top of it, you want to have a piece in the back, because otherwise when you set your shelf on top, that shelf is going to bow over time. So you do want to have a back piece on there. We will do that for the other one, and we'll just go ahead and use the original back piece since it's already the right size. But I'm not going to put one up here, because as you can see, we've only got like a couple of inches above this for a shelf, and that's not enough room to do anything with. So I'm just going to leave this as is, but let's go ahead and put the pole in. That's the fun part. Woohoo! Okay, so left side first goes in the circle, and then the other side goes in the notch, and there we've got our first pole. All right, so I'm gonna hang a shirt up here. Look at that. Woohoo! And we're all done. We can quit.
Nice try, mister.
What do you mean?
You got one more to do.
No fair. Okay. Okay, so we're ready to put in the lower piece now. I've already drilled in all the pilot holes on these. This one's probably going to be the trickiest one. That's why I'm going to go ahead and just try to get it done first. Because keep in mind, you know, all that's holding this together right now is some tape, and they're separate pieces that are just sitting on top. But once we get it in place and they're screwed in, it should hold together pretty well. Not to mention that you're not really going to have any pressure on these top pieces, because that bar is just going to rest in there. So they're just kind of providing some extra support at this point. But get screw in there. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky to hold this all together and work the drill, so I've called in some reinforcements. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come on in. Okay, so you're gonna hold these. Can you hold both of these up? Like the other hand right here. Come on.
And how's this thing took off?
Just hold it together.
How'd you take them off?
Hold it in place. Now look at this. See how I drew this line here?
Yeah.
It's got to stay above that line. So hold it right there. Use your muscles. Use all your muscles.
Gideon is so strong.
Both hands. I'm gonna drill this in so it'll stay. All right, there it is.
High five,
Good job.
Gideon.
What about that hole?
Don't worry about it.
High five.
Good job. High five.
Do you recognize the old bunk bed pieces? No.
You didn't,
Hey, you didn't even get a high five. How's that make you feel?
Makes me sad. What's up with that? Okay, so I was trying to put this back piece in there, and it's a little bit too tight. So this is one of those cases where we have to improvise a little bit. So I'll have to like shave a little bit off the edge to get that to fit in there. Alright, so I'm going to shave this end off now. As you can see, it's going to get into where my pilot holes were. It's not really the end of the world. Let's drill some new ones. Alright, so now it fits just fine. Okay, so we've got our last piece ready to go in. I know that it fits. I've got pilot holes drilled in. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing in there. So put this right here. I think I can probably do this one without Gideon's help. We'll see. Maybe not. Might have to call him in. Might need some more muscle. Okay, so this is like pretty much the final part of the process. We got to cut our pipe. So, like I said, this is way too long. What I did, this original one fits in the space where we're putting it. So I just held them next to each other and I used a Sharpie and I drew a line where we want to cut this one. And then we are going to use this pipe cutter to cut the pipe. So we're going to take the tool, make sure that you've got it unwound enough that it will fit on there. And if you look, see where this little blade is and then these wheels, go ahead and gently tighten it until it's, the blade is touching it and the wheels are touching it. And then what you're going to do, don't get in a hurry, but you're going to gently be turning this wheel to the right as you twist the tool around. It might take a little bit of practice. I had to actually do a little bit of practice on the end of the pipe just to get the hang of it before I was ready to do it. It takes a little bit of coordination, but all right, so here we go. All right, so we finally got that off. Now, you're not quite done yet. If you look at your tool, if you give this a push, you've got this little kind of blade looking thing that comes out. This is to get rid of all these little sharp pieces here. So use that, you're just gonna kind of twist it around in there and it's gonna shave off those little sharp edges. You still want to be careful though. I mean, you can still hurt yourself on here, but that's going to help using that little blade that's on the tool. That's why it's there. Get rid of those little sharp edges, and then if you come over here, you will put this in here, and it fits. So we've got two places to hang, top and bottom, and we're all set.
It's like it's my job now. I have to make it pretty.
That's right. Okay, so I just wanted to show you real quick how this all turned out. So we finished the closet, so as you can see, we painted, so it looks a lot better now, being fully painted and everything. I've got my clothes hung up in there, so just much better. So I would say the project was a success. So anyway, you might have a slightly different experience depending on your closet, what your closet looks like, the condition of it. So this is just kind of a way to give you an idea of what you can do, how you can make things better for storage. So anyway, that was it. Thanks for joining us.